had many of the same constraints that we had not being agile. So what I mean by that is we deal with external clients to our company that we have contracts with to deliver solutions, based upon a scope of work for the client. So we have contracts still. We have budgets that we have to adhere to. We have timelines that are often dictated by our external clients. We still have all the traditional roles in our IT group. We have project managers, BAs, developers, UXA, solution architects, QA, all of those typical roles. Yet we're, kind of moving into the Scrum. We moved into the Scrum framework that had, 3 roles associated to it. So what I realized early on as as the BA practice lead and, hearing the feedback from my team members, they worked on each of their Agile teams, is that from a BA perspective, we were very much impacted. With the introduction of Agile. It impacted the way we approached our work, the way we planned our work, really the way we do our work on a day-to-day basis. And obviously one of the key differences is the way we documented requirements. We typically document it in the form of a BRD, getting all the requirements up front, and then we moved over, transition to using user stories. Another key difference is where our work occurred. We were looking at where does our work occur. When you look at Scrum and you see that sprint cycle, it looks like, where does our work fit into the sprint cycle? We knew that most of our work really happens outside of that sprint cycle in advance, where we're refining that backlog. We are making sure that we have all of the user stories all elaborated and ready to go for the sprint. So from, really from the time that we rolled out Agile, for myself personally, and also for our whole BA team, we've had goals around increasing our Agile business analysis knowledge. And really, for me, it's really trying to understand when you hear that, what does that mean? Where do we fit into the Agile team? Where can we provide the most value? What additional skills, tools, techniques do we need to be successful in our Agile teams that we work in? And what does business analysis look like in an Agile context? So really all of that kind of background of how we evolved from, from an organization into Agile and how I saw it impacting us as BAs, that's what really led me down this path to pursue the IIBA AAC certification. The difference with this certification is that it is really more focused on business analysis in an Agile context, in an Agile mindset. So it's business analysis focused. So that's really one of the driving reasons that I wanted to pursue it, is because I felt it was giving me more background and knowledge from a BA perspective in the work that we do on a day-to-day basis. So I'll stop there, and we can definitely get into next about, what was all entailed with us kind of going through studying for and preparing for this certification. I'll first just turn it over to Bharati to let her introduce herself and give a little bit of her background, and then we can delve into, questions and talk through what the exam preparation and exam itself was all about.
Yes, Cherie has sort of given you the background information about the company, and we both work together, so I won't get into all that. But just very briefly, my background actually was mathematics and statistics, but my first job was in software, and I sort of stumbled upon it on campus, but I loved it, and I've stayed with it, and I've been with 110 for the last 7 years almost. I'm working as the senior business analyst. And like I said, when we moved to Agile, to me, I always was sort of struggling with how is the Agile mindset different from waterfall, because that's what we all had been doing, right? It was iterative waterfall, but still, how should we approach the business analysis process from the mindset perspective? We go through the, we have Scrum and we have all the ceremonies, but it's basically, to me, that's what actually drove me to the certification, to really understand what does Agile mindset mean, and then of course to apply it. And then there were a lot of good things that I learned as part of the certification techniques, and we'll get into all that because, like I said, a lot of things we do as part of our role and daily, it's something that you inherently do as a business analyst, but the certification process, I would say it opened up some things that, were there as concepts, but they solidified it. And so now in my everyday work, I'm applying it more formally. I'm thinking more about it. And so that's how it helped me. But now we'll get into the Q&A session.
Yeah, and if you want to, go to this next slide because we can give a little bit of background, starting out with, what is this Agile analysis certification? So this certification is intended to strengthen your skills and expertise, as a business analyst, but focusing really with that Agile perspective. So working in Agile projects or in an Agile context, with an Agile mindset. It's competency based, so it recognizes this through this this specialization, and it's aligned to the Agile extension to the BABAC version 2. So it really tests your ability to answer questions based upon, it's scenario-based questions, answering real-world scenarios and questions. So what I want to point out here is really the key guide and the key information that you would study for the certification is that Agile extension to the BABAC. And it is available free to any IIBA members. It can also be purchased, but I mean, it's highly recommended to, become a member, an IIBA member. There's, multiple benefits associated to that as well. And you have access to many different resources, but that is the guide that you would study. And the certification is really based upon, it's the primary basis for the exam. And the exam itself is organized into 4 domains. So it's focused on the Agile mindset. So as Bharati was mentioning, what is the mindset that you need to have to work as an analyst on an Agile team. It's really kind of foundational and key to establish that Agile mindset and apply Agile business analysis principles. And it's something that you need to develop and learn over time. It's something you can't just, read about and it just automatically happens. It's a very big way of, it's changing the way that we think about our work and approach our work. In addition to the Agile mindset domain, the other 3 focus areas for the exam are based upon the various horizons that analysis can occur. So they have the three horizons: the strategy horizon, initiative horizon, and delivery horizon. The strategy is being more kind of the overall company, the organizational goals, and really based upon kind of the vision, direction of the company. And that's where business analysis is more kind of focused on scope, vision, higher level, broader perspective. Then you get into the initiative horizon, which is based more upon the more of like releases, and then down into the delivery, which is really your more kind of your sprint cycles, your day-to-day delivery. So you learn a lot through this Agile extension about different techniques, the level of analysis that should be occurring at those different horizons, as well as techniques, Agile techniques that can be applied at those horizons. So those are the 4 kind of focus areas for the exam. The exam itself consists of 85 multiple choice questions that are to be answered within 2 hours. The exam is also, it's an online exam. It's an online proctored exam. That was probably one of the scariest parts of this whole process, was preparing for this online exam. I mean, you had to make sure you were in a room that didn't have anything around you. You had to take your laptop and you had to, pan it across the entire room so they could make make sure that no one else was in the room with you, that you didn't have any, hidden notes. So that was probably the day of the exam. One of the things that gave me the most anxiety is what to expect there. And then they also expect you to not talk and to keep your eyes focused on your screen. And I have the tendency to kind of look around as I'm thinking, and you had to make sure you're really focused. And then the blueprint exam is as follows. So I mentioned up on that the bullet above that there's 4 domain areas that were tested on with a certification. And this gives the breakdown. So the Agile mindset, 30% of those 85 questions are based on the Agile mindset, 10% on the strategy horizon, 25% on the initiative horizon, and then 35% on the delivery horizon. So this gives you, some insight as far as, what the certification is intended to kind of focus on. And it's, again, the tool that you use to study for it is that Agile extension. And then the 4 domain areas are really what the focus of this certification is. Bharati, Aaron, anything else to add from that perspective?
No, I think that was good. And like we said, the main, the domains, they're real world scenarios. So in terms of preparation, I mean, if you want to get into that before we open it up for questions. So I can give you sort of the experience that Cherie and I went through is initially, we sort of read the book and we thought, oh, we need to study together, but, it was more on and off. And then we decided we'll join the study group, which really helped us because then it was, there's a structure, you had to sort of, I wouldn't say you had to, but because you're part of a study group, you do it. And Aaron was good. He gave us homework, you made sure that you read the chapter, you do the homework, and then it gets reinforced during the study group. So in that sense, I think it helps absorb the material because it's all about absorbing the material and then applying it to real world scenarios. So it helped prepare us for the exams. Like we said, the exam itself wasn't too bad. I mean, we thought, and maybe because we were so well prepared by the Bluegrass chapter, that the exam itself wasn't, it was pretty straightforward. But like Cherie mentioned, the online proctoring, they are very strict about certain things. Like, Cherie mentioned that she tends to look around, and I had my hand literally like this a couple of times, and they were like, please keep your hands down. So they're very, very strict. And but 85 questions, 2 hours is really plenty of time. So but I think it's important to really understand the material.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll just add a couple other comments related to that and the preparation that I took. And like Bharati said, we kind of followed the same path, and we were kind of giving each other encouragement to get through this and held each other accountable. So some of this will depend on your ability to devote time to it and kind of what your learning style is. The exam itself, there is not a requirement to have any, documented work experience in an Agile setting, although they do recommend 2 to 3 years. And this certification does not require any professional development hours in order to sit for the exam. Many of the other, like the CBAP and I believe even some of the other just other entry level and other certification exams from the IIBA require some hours of experience. This doesn't require it. So you technically could take this without a study group, but I definitely, or some other course, because there also are courses from endorsed education providers. But you could do it without that. I think, as Bharati said, that it's important and it helps if you have that study group or a course to kind of keep you on track. I also, we had a corporate access account to LinkedIn Learning, and there was a course out there, which was an AAC prep course. So I also took that, and it had a practice test with it as well. So both through the study group, the IIBA Bluegrass study group that we attended, as well as that LinkedIn Learning prep course that I took. I had access to 2 different practice tests, and I found that to be a very useful kind of gauge of my readiness to take the exam. So after, I took each of those courses and we had the exam, then it gave you that opportunity to see where kind of you have some weakness and areas that you need to focus on. So after the study group, then I went back and really focused on those areas that I had missed, answering the questions, and that I found that I really needed to understand that material more. And then I focused on how we saw the breakdowns of, agile mindset and the delivery horizon are, the 2 key areas that they're testing on. So I really made sure that I understood that information the most. And I feel like I probably was, over prepared. Like Bharati said, we were probably very, very prepared for this. I mean, I think it's just both of our nature to be very prepared, but it was really important for us to make sure we also understood the material, not just I want to get through this and memorize it so I can, get my certification. It was really trying to absorb it. So that's, I think, where, maybe I had some hesitancy or like, oh, am I ready for this? I just wanted to make sure that I really truly understood that material as well. So from our time frame, if you were wondering like how long will it take me to study, from our standpoint, we took the study group, which was a 6-week study group. So it was September and October of last year. And then we both sat for the exam in November. Bharati, you were more the early part of November, and I was the later part of November. So,
Right.
really, through that study group and us taking our own initiative to review the guide, the Agile Extension Guide, and us after the study group, making sure we focused on those areas that we knew that we needed to, study based on those practice exams. It was probably like a 90-day, period for us.
Okay. And,
Right.
it really depends on, how much priority you will put on
Absolutely.
the thing and how
Yeah.
much other interruptions you have.
True.
Yes, we were both at a
It's a
point
lot.
where we could devote more of our time, to what was just our particular, situations. And we knew we had been kind of planning for it, that we were going to, in the fall of last year, try to target this exam, so we were planning for it. But it's absolutely correct, Aaron. It just all really depends on your own circumstances and situation of how much time you can really devote to it. Just
And I
need to
think,
take the time to prepare. Yeah.
right. And I think a question came through saying that did we sort of wait to get 100%? No,
No.
we did not wait. And I don't know if you could ever get 100%, to be honest. No, we just sort of, a level of comfort, which I think, is like a 80% and above. And then we said, okay, we are ready to take the test.
Yeah, and I think that Aaron gave us some encouragement as well. Based upon our test scores, he was saying to both of us, I think that you're fairly well prepared. Gave us some of that encouragement.
Yes,
That
it was
we're
go,
prepared.
go, go.
Yeah, so that was very helpful. That based upon the scores of our tests, Aaron did give us that encouragement to say he felt that we were, we're prepared. So yes, thank you for everything that you provided to us in that study group, because it really did give us what we needed to be able to be prepared for the exam.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. So anybody else have any other questions for Bharati and Cherie? Feel free to type them in the chat. There's also a Q&A box on the bottom of your window. You can put it in either one of those, or unmute yourself and ask them with your own voice. So it was a good question, Steve, about, take practice exams until you're 100%. And it, like Bharati said, that would be very hard to achieve. Taking a 85 question and getting them all right would be very difficult. So yeah, just get to a level of comfort. When I did take the AAC exam, the very first screen that came up told me that and ladies, hopefully they're still doing this. It told me that I needed 52 questions right. they,
Yes, yes. But I think they tell you that right at the end after you passed, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
but even before I took the exam, you know, the
Okay.
first
Yeah.
introductory page, you said you will need 52 questions answered correctly. That's 61%, 52 of 85, which is pretty low actually. But so I knew going in, you know, how much I had to be and get that. So it was good.
I see another question in the chat
Yes.
box from,
Somewhere, I can't remember where, I heard that you shouldn't take the exam unless you have 2 to 3 years experience in working. I gotta scroll it and working with Agile. I don't call, I can consider the exam with the study group or class. So the exam is, and the certification is targeted for people who have 2 to 3 years of experience. It is not a requirement. When I took the exam, I did not have 2 to 3 years of Agile experience. I had studied it. I know the framework and that. I studied the Agile extension, went through our study group, which someone else was teaching, you know, and took the exam and passed it in that. So it is targeted. Having the experience helps you with the exam, I feel. Um, but it is not an absolute requirement that you have 2 to 3 years of Agile experience.
again, I think a good gauge is if you were to review, you know, and get familiar with that Agile extension. If you find that those concepts are familiar to you or they're foreign to you, it will help you gauge, even if you don't have that 2 to 3 years of experience, if you would find yourself to be prepared for it, you know. So I think by reviewing the Agile extension, it can help you to kind of answer that question. If you don't have the 2 to 3 years of experience, if you are working in an Agile environment, you still may be familiar enough with these concepts to feel that you would be able to take the exam.
And there was a
So
question about the hours and days. That's really, I would say, very individual, right? I think when you reach a point where you understand the nuances, right, between the horizons, how the agile mindset and the techniques apply, that's when you know that you are ready. You know what I mean? Because one person might take 2 hours, another one might need 8 hours. It's very individual. For us, like we said, including the study group period. So from the start to when we took the certification, it was a 90-day period, but it's individual.
yeah, our study groups, it was 5 weeks and it was 2.5 hours each evening for 5 weeks. That, so, you know, you had that 12.5 hours put into it, and plus the study time outside of the actual study session. So,
Yeah.
and like we said, it really depends on the personal experience. If you got kids at home and other family duties and obligations and that, you know, you're not going to have as much time per day to put toward it as if you lived alone uh, and such. So, you know, it really is an individual thing. So another question, can you give us a real world scenario of the type of question? Who wants to take that?
Gosh, I'm trying to,
Well,
I'm
first of
trying
all,
to remember
first of all,
because, you
all the,
know, some of the questions were, you know, they were technique based. If you want a real world scenario question, I think, you know, I won't remember the exact words, but it's basically you had to know the difference between, I think, a user story versus a job story.
Mhm.
Like I said, I can't recall a question from the examination per se, but it, like I said, you know, if you are in Scrum and you're working with those kind of techniques, then you do know the difference
So
between
first
the
of
two.
all, like Cherie said earlier, 85 questions. They were all multiple choice. There's always 4 answer options for each one, not 3, not 5, or, all multiple choice, all 4 options to answer it. Like Bharati said, there are 24 techniques in the Agile extension. 3 of them are repeats from the Babak. And it's going to be when would you use those type of techniques, or it'll give you a scenario that some BA is doing this, what technique are they doing? The individual planning horizons, the strategy horizon initiative delivery, there's a time frame for each one of those. The strategy looks further out, it's 3 years to multiple years. So knowing those time frames, where daily or the delivery horizon is like less than 1 month. It's daily to 1 month is what that planning horizon is. So it'll ask you a question. What is the typical planning or time frame for the initiative horizon? And they'll say 1 to 3 years, 1 to 4 years, 2 to 6 years. You got to know which it is.
There are a couple other questions that we may have
How much
passed by. There was a question from Mary, and she was asking, did we find this certification common in our company, and is it really new? So this certification, this AAC certification, was introduced, I believe, in 2018. Do you know offhand, Aaron? I think that's when it was introduced, either 2018, I think it was, or maybe early 19. I'm not sure, but it is a fairly new certification from an IIBA standpoint. And then in our company specifically, it is not, it is not a common certification. I mean, when you look at certifications around Agile, the more common ones are, like a certified Scrum Master or certified Scrum Product Owner. But this is one that, again, from a BA standpoint, and we're a relatively small, in the scheme of things, relatively small company and a small team. We have 8 BAs, but this is something that I found that was more beneficial to the BAs in their day-to-day work. And so does our company, are there a lot of people who have the certification? No, our team is relatively small. Bharati and I, 2 out of our 8 BAs have it, and Bharati and I are talking with our other BAs and kind of educating them on the certification. And we have other people who are interested in it. It's just, again, they're in those different situations where, they might have young children and don't have the time to devote to it. And, they want to pursue it. They just aren't in the situation right now that they can devote the time to it, because that's always a big piece of any certification, is your ability to be able to devote time, because often it's in your personal time outside of business hours that you're studying for it.
Yeah. And I believe the IIBA certifications that most people are getting right now that are growing right now, started with the CBAP, I think is growing still the fastest, and more people are getting that over the others, then ECBA, then the AAC. So it's still one of the highest one that people are getting. It has a very business analysis in the Agile context, in the Agile environment, where a lot of the other Agile certifications are generic Agile, like the CSPO that I have, the CSM Bharati has, right? It's not business analyst perspective within the Agile time frame. So this one is. So there was a follow-up question to that one about how many hours you spend in a day. Is, can we go with self-prep? So can you go take the exam if you don't go through a study group and just do self-preparation?
I think personally that depends on the individual, your learning style and your ability to study the material on your own. I think that a study group or some sort of prep course is going to be advantageous. I mean, it would I think it would be a lot to do it with just self prep, but it can be done, especially since there is not that requirement to have professional development hours in order to take the exam. And, again, I think we touched on how many hours per day that we spent preparing. It really is on a person by person basis. But I'd have to say that, I, on average, maybe would spend, I'll just say 2 to 4 hours a week, and probably as I approach, like right before testing, I probably bumped it up more, probably spent more time testing it. And then during the study group, because Aaron was giving homework, we had to read you read the chapters, and then you did all of the homework, so there was another probably like hour to 2 hours outside of the study group itself, that you're kind of preparing for the study group and reading the chapters.
Yeah. So it is possible. You have the self-discipline to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can. I had a son that was taking courses, at a university, and then he went to take online courses. Just couldn't take the online courses. He didn't have the self-discipline to do it without the structure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if you're going to do a self-study, I mean, you really would want to lay out a plan of, how you're going to approach this, and kind of set some intermediate goals for yourself, because it's easy to get sidetracked in day-to-day life and not make it a priority. Like where Bharati was saying, joining the study group, we had that commitment to the 6 weeks. It required us to read the guide. It required us to answer questions. Plus, just the interaction in the study group is just helpful. It's just some concepts that you read that might be unclear, you can ask the questions. You get that clarity when you're in a group setting where you can just, discuss things and say, I don't really understand, what are real options? What does that technique mean? That was one that we've talked about, and Aaron gave some good examples, so there's a lot of benefits to joining a study group or taking a prep course if possible. But yeah, I mean, it definitely could be done
I
without.
love real options.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and actually I was just seeing the question from Steve saying, how has the AAC or going through the book contributed to your performance? And I was just thinking about a couple of things that we learned, right? You apply it more formally, where they say, there's a thing of see the whole. So you have to have the vision. You can't just, it's agile, but you still must have a vision of where this feature will look like when it's all completed. And then the technique, real options, where you break it down, and then you just focus on things that really matter at that moment, and you put off making decisions or doing anything about things that happen later, because maybe by then it won't be an issue anymore, or B, that's the time you have all the information to actually make a more informed decision. So I would say it has helped. And Cherie is my manager, so she needs to tell me, has it really helped my performance?
Absolutely.
I'm putting her in a spot now.
Oh, absolutely. And it's also, I think, put Bharati in a position from a kind of a coaching the team perspective. I'll digress just a minute, but Bharati's been working on a team that she like normally our BAs are assigned long-term to a given client, project team, work with the same team over years in some cases. And Bharati's been assigned to a team that she has been working on just for a few months. But she has been able to bring some of these ideas and concepts to the team, a team that she's fairly new to, and they have been open to her ideas. Some examples are kind of that where she said, see the whole. So that's trying to still give big picture context, right? I mean, when we think of Agile, you're kind of developing and delivering, I should say, in kind of small increments of value, but you still need to see the big picture, the overall picture. And so she has introduced ideas and concepts where we even go to the client to get that kind of high level vision, the end to end, before we start diving into user stories. That's further down the road. We got to start kind of higher level at the visioning level, get into kind of, more epic level, high level, make sure we understand context, scope, vision before we move down into those details. So the team, they were approaching things where they kind of would start the user stories, and Bharati introduce that concept of can we start with the high level to make sure that we're even on the right path, and that before we delve into the details. So that's one example of how it's helped. And it, again, from both of our perspective, it's just bringing so much more awareness to your daily work of like that agile mindset, the things that we learned through that certification. It's really trying to apply that and think about it in our day-to-day work of how we can be how we can be agile, and how you kind of do things more incrementally. We're used to, a lot of us are used to thinking about, you got to get all your requirements buttoned up at the beginning, kind of that waterfall frame of mind. And now you have to work with some uncertainty, and you do analysis, but you focus on those most high priority, valuable items. And sometimes there's unknowns. You don't have all the answers yet. And they come along the way as you get into that kind of, you get into a next release or a next sprint where you're starting to work on those next details. So definitely has helped us in our day-to-day work.
Okay, AJ asks, should I take the ECBA first and then the AAC, or the order of certification won't matter?
Aaron, we probably let you answer that one.
And I'll answer it too, and then I'll let Aaron, you can add to it as well, because I have an employee on our team right now who has just transitioned from a QA role into a BA role. So she has a lot of transferable skills and background, but she's new to the BA role. So she right now is looking at the ECBA certification to help give her that business analysis foundation, because that's, I think if you don't have that foundation, that may be potentially a good starting point, because that's really giving you foundation of business analysis. When you work on an agile team, you're not throwing away everything you know about business analysis. Those underlying competencies and that foundation is still relevant. The AAC is just giving you additional tools and understanding from an agile perspective. So I think it would depend on your situation, AJ, that if you are entirely new to the business analysis, potentially that ECBA might be a good starting point. If you do have some experience from a BA perspective, but now maybe you're getting into working on an agile team, it might be more beneficial for you to start with the AAC certification. So I think it does depend on your situation to some extent. So that's my thought on it, Aaron. What's your thought?
I would absolutely agree. It really depends upon what perspective you want to go. ECBA is general business analysis, and will teach you the BABA and the 6 knowledge areas there and everything. The agile analysis will teach you the 4 domains, the 3 planning horizons, the 7 principles of agile business analysis, and all of that. So it depends on which perspective you want. What is your organization doing? I went and got the AAC as soon as I heard our management say the word agile. Knew that the company was going to go through an agile transformation journey, and I wanted to be on the front end of that, and I am on that. And going and getting this certification in my CSPO certification has put me in a place where I can be on the bleeding edge of being an internal resource for agile for my company. And so both of them do not require any business analysis experience or agile experience. The ECBA does require 21 hours professional development training. So professional development is formal training in business analysis. So you'll have to have that in order to qualify for the ECBA. Like Cherie said earlier, the AAC does not even require that. So you could actually go take it with no business analysis experience, no agile experience, and no professional training, and go and get the AAC and that. So, they're both good to have for, a novice BA or somebody just coming into the profession and that. So just depends upon your perspective. So, question about ROI, the value of the certification. I think last year's IIBA salary survey said the people with the AAC earn about 11% more than those without it. So, and that's from thousands of respondents all over the world. So, I don't know if we can answer anything more about, return on your investment to go through the study group, pay for that, go through that, and pay the certification exams. So there is some money that you'll put into it. What's the return on that?
Yeah, I guess one other comment on that is from kind of the overall cost. Like if we factored in the exam cost, and we took the the study group through the Bluegrass chapter, it was still a relatively, in my mind, a small investment dollar wise compared to even some of the other certifications, like the certified Scrum Master. I mean, you have to take I could think of 2 or 3 day prep course, Bharati. I mean, it's quite expensive.
Yeah,
and
definitely
it's
expensive.
yeah, and it's pretty much, you take this course and you're done. You're pretty much guaranteed to to pass. It doesn't have any requirements either of experience, that kind of thing. So to me, it was a relatively small financial investment for what you're gaining. And then, as kind of coupled with what you said, Aaron, about IIBA's salary survey results with those who have the certification.
So yeah, Aparna says, thank you very much. Yes, I passed the CBAP with self-study. That was tough.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I've actually tried two different at 2 different points over the years to study for the CBAP. Both times self-study, and that's why I don't have my CBAP yet. I do have a PMP certification, which is through the Project Management Institute, and that I did self-study, and it was definitely more grueling. And CBAP is along that same line. That's quite an accomplishment to you.
Yeah, that is so. Yeah, I will applaud anybody who goes through self-study and achieve any certification. That does take self-discipline. Yeah, I see something in the Q&A there too. CBAP and other certifications expire after, I think, 2 years and must be renewed, but ECBA does not. It's lifetime. Does AAC require renewal?
That's a good question. It does. It requires an annual renewal, and you have to have 20 continuing education units. I think that's what they call it, right? I know they no, there's PDUs, EDUs. I think it's
Development unit, PDUs.
Yeah. So anyhow, 20 continuing education units in order to reapply for that certification. Then there's a $30, if you remember, I think it's a $30 cost associated to reapply. You do not have to retest. So once you've taken the test, you don't retest again, but you have to have, you have to show that you're continuing to kind of grow and learn in the Agile analysis field, because it has to be PDUs that apply to Agile analysis in some kind of form or fashion. And then the cost, the $30 to renew the certification.
So yeah. So David, yeah, you're absolutely right. The CBAP and the CCBA renew every 3 years. And I know the CBAP, I have to get 60 CDUs every 3 years. So 20 a year, I guess. And that, like Cherie says, $30 to renew the AAC, and you do it every year with 20 CDUs. And earning CDUs is quite easy, and there's like different categories you can earn them in. It's pretty easy to recertify it. And fortunately, it doesn't take another exam, right?
True. Not one more of those proctored ones.
Yeah.
Once in a lifetime, I think is enough.
Yeah, my CSPO does renew every 2 years, so I'm assuming the CSM is the same way.
Yes, but that, like I said, it's the PDUs, you know, it's not, there's no exam again.
Right.
So,
So, yeah, so it is a real, and that's one thing I call the difference between a certificate and a certification is that there's a renewal requirement that you have to stay in the business, continue to develop and educate yourself, you know, to retain that certification. Thank you for sharing your guidance. Thanks for a great session. Very valuable. Hey, I did forget, you know, created these polls at the beginning and I forgot to actually do it. So let me put up a poll real quick, you know, as we're leaving here and just ask you where you are in your interest or your process of obtaining your IIBA AAC, your Agile Analysis certification. So and there's one about planning to participate in the Bluegrass Agile Analysis Study Group. You know, we'd like to see entries for that. And got quite a few people, yeah, coming up there. Just about everybody's answered. Voting on 9, so we'll let you know where everybody is. You know, a lot of interest in this and that. So we did get one person to say they're going to participate in our study group, but a lot of interest. Most of you want to get it this year, so that's great. So, and any other last questions? Let me check the Q&A box. I don't see any there. Thank you for all the thank yous in the chat box. So we've got quite a few. Bharati, Cherie, thank you very much for doing this for us, sharing your experience and your guidance to the audience here. Really appreciate it. Thank you everybody for being here.
thank you for having us, and good luck to everyone who wants to pursue the certification.
And if you have any follow-up questions, you will get an email tomorrow. This was recorded, and a link to that recording as well as the slide deck will be in that follow-up email, as well as my email address is professional@bluegrass.iiba.org. If you come up with a question tomorrow or sometime and didn't get an opportunity to ask it here, you know, feel free to email me and ask, and I'll answer your questions about the Agile Analysis certification. So thank you very much for being here. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.